Right now, everyone's asking what America First is, right? We had a great debate, Kyle and I, about the Venezuela situation on other episode, and everything. Tucker Carlson to a debate with Dinesh D'Souza and Dave Smith recently, to many other discussions happening online and in our country about what do we mean by this. And obviously, at least part of it is, what is our domestic policy? And it's been a minute since the big, beautiful bill, since we've really talked about that. So today, we assembled some of the things that are happening in the sphere, and the White House gave us a great gift by announcing right before the podcast his new healthcare plan. But we're going to be diving into that, some reforms to credit cards, as well as the Road Act, which is really important potential reform sitting in the Senate and in the House as a companion bill to reform housing and address housing affordability. So let's dive into it.
All right. Thanks, guys, for joining us on another episode of Human Reaction. David Rand, Kyle Mack, Bennett on the buttons. I'm Joe Sheehan. Before we get started, go ahead and smash the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you're on Spotify, leave us a comment. Gay and retarded, always welcome. All right. Now that the formalities are out of the way, I'm going to crack my very salty beverage provided to us by our friends at Element, and let's get into it.
Yeah, stay salty, guys.
All right.
So we got this announcement plan on the great great healthcare plan. I think it should be Great American Healthcare Plan.
Yeah, it is the Great Healthcare Plan.
Not great branding.
I want to say, because I was like combing through the comments of this, and there's a lot of people that think that this video is AI. So put that in the back of your mind too, because I'm just like,
everything's computer.
Do it again.
Is this Trump real?
Everything's computer.
Okay.
Right, so that's just a little side note as we're going through this. But yeah, we're just going to watch the first little bit, and then we're going to go break down kind of the key elements of what is being proposed here for the broad plan. But here is our president.
Today, I'm thrilled to announce my plan to lower healthcare prices for all Americans and truly make healthcare affordable again. We're doing things that nobody's ever been able to do. We're calling it the Great Healthcare Plan. Instead of putting the needs of big corporations and special interests first, our plan finally puts you first and puts more money in your pocket. The government is going to pay the money directly to you. It goes to you, and then you take the money and buy your own health care. Nobody's ever heard of that before, and that's the way it is. The big insurance companies lose, and the people of our country win. This proposal locks in the massive discounts on prescription drugs that my administration is achieving through our most favored nation drug pricing agreement. Now, when you hear about that, for 40 years they've been trying to do it, but they never were able to do it. No other president was able to do it. I got every other country to approve it. By the use of tariffs and other things, they all approved it. Nobody else got it. No other president got it. And for the most part, they didn't even try because they felt it was impossible. It'll bring down drug.
All right, we can just kind of stop there. But
Nothing bad can happen. It can only good happen.
I love it.
It's a much longer video, but we can get into some of the stuff that we are skipping over there too as we go through the key elements.
So AI, my case there is he does kind of look puffy. Or doesn't his eyes look squintier than usual?
Well, that's a bad freeze frame, I'd say.
Well, no, I mean like the whole time. Like take the volume off too, Kyle. Here.
I was looking at the hands the whole time, so that
I was looking at the hands too.
That's the tell.
Yeah.
There was some weird movement in the hands and the arms.
Is it the reflection of the hands? Does that look weird to you?
I don't know.
It's hard to say.
I don't think it's AI.
I don't think it's AI. I feel like I would notice some weird things. I think he's just extremely still, and like it's a 5-minute video. Like he could have just gone through and it was scripted. So I don't.
And I've seen a lot of like long form talking head AI videos, and they are pretty bad still. Like this would have to be some very advanced technology for them to pull this off.
Get the NSA on that. Come on.
I imagine the tech exists. Yeah,
you could have some very like specific Trump loras that you're putting into it, and just kind of do that, I guess. And maybe it's like hyper fixated on like the president, but I don't know. That didn't appear.
They just trained it on a data set of all Trump speeches for all time.
Which I mean, you could do to really get that model together.
But you're going to abuse the shit out of that soundbite today.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I was going through, and it felt like a third of the comments underneath it were just like, "This is great. but maybe you shouldn't use AI videos. Like, it was just, I saw a lot of that in there.
I feel like you can tell pretty quickly if it's
Yeah.
AI. Yeah. I don't think it is.
And I watched the whole thing 5 minutes with that in mind, and I was just like, I'm not seeing the types of stuff I would see on a longer AI video.
People are just questioning the reality, man. We're in the matrix. We don't know where we are.
Well,
you know,
yeah,
don't know
that's
what's
a fair
real.
point. And a topic for another show. But on the topic of his speech, what do you guys think? I mean, it sounds interesting. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean the big picture, right, of lower prescription drug prices based upon what he did in the first Trump administration to do the most favored nation status, where they said these other countries, and the background of that is these other countries, they use their governments to buy down subscription drugs either through collective bargaining or subsidy for the people who buy them in their country. And what happens with that is drugs are expensive to produce for lots of reasons. They got to pass the EPA, both safe and effective, right?
I mean, FDA?
FDA, sorry, EPA. I just hate those guys. No, it's actually FDA. And then they have to, the European equivalent of that, the Russian, the Chinese, the, South African, whatever. Mm-hmm. So they have to do that globally. And a lot of these other places, the way that drug companies kind of recoup their costs is they put a lot of that load on America because we don't do that. We don't do the collective bargaining and subsidy of those things for the purchases. So what this will do is it basically says, and what it's done, and I guess he says in there that it's going to be implemented next month. Like that's when it kicks in. It's not kicked in now. I don't know how that works.
I don't know how that's going to work either.
Okay.
This was one of those things where they just put this launch out, and it's also just kind of everything that we have at the moment is just talking point based of it. We don't have kind of the full comprehensive package and everything yet. So it's just kind of here's the broad schema of what we're doing. That's kind of where we're at the moment.
Yeah. Well, there is there is some specifics involved, but it isn't. You're right. It's
more broad-based
and he
at the
wants to
moment.
do some legislation to actually change how this is going to work, because you do need legislation. Now, the most favored nation status thing, that was mostly, like he says, like a trade negotiation sort of tactic to get there. Now, what are going to be the economic effects of that are interesting, because if you're going to have new drugs, you need drug development, and that money has to come from somewhere. So what's going to happen? So the pessimist look on that is probably going to be, well, they're just not going to produce new drugs. But that means the end of drug companies because copyrights run out, right? And you got to keep making new drugs, right? And there's also need and like value to produce. So how are you going to do that? It's probably going to happen where America joins a lower status in the purchasing and selling of drugs in America, like a price fixing scheme does that. Either that deficit is going to be made by constraining the sale or of new drugs, right? With a much increased price in other markets, I guess that might remain to exist. Or it means a general price rise across the board, meaning the drug companies start raising prices in the UK and in the Europe and China and all these other places so that they can actually recoup their total cost.
Gotcha.
Right. So, and in that sense, Americans benefit and the rest of the world kind of doesn't. But those assholes were subsidizing their purchases anyway, so I don't feel that bad about it.
Wasn't it the other way for a long time? We were paying high prices so other places could be subsidized?
Yeah. Well, and they were being
What's fair
subsidized
is
with their
fair.
own tax dollars, right? But that's the perverse incentives of socialism, right?
Sure.
So I'm from a value proposition part of it, I really have no particular problem with this other than just going into it with eyes wide open. This could mean if they're unable to renegotiate with those other companies and get higher prices so that they can recoup the research costs, it could mean less drugs, less new novel drug development for niche things.
Yeah.
Not cocaine, drugs.
Or Tylenol, actually.
Yeah, right. No more Tylenol.
Autism givers.
Yeah.
Right. I know. My whole thought is like, well, if there are fewer drugs, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we should use this as an opportunity to cut our dependence on so many pharmaceutical drugs.
Imagine for a moment there's a new novel drug that does something really great for ALS patients or some other kind of niche disease that doesn't have a clear cure.
I hear Element's really good for ALS.
Yeah.
Yeah, stay salty.
Stay salty.
Not medical advice. Do your own research.
That's good for hydration. That's what it's good for. All right. So we also had the reduced health insurance premiums. This is really jamming. So do you want to read off from there, Kyle, or do you want to read it from your description here?
Sure. Well, yeah, we can send the money directly to the American people. So stop sending big insurance companies billions in extra taxpayer funded subsidy payments, and instead send that money directly to eligible Americans to allow them to buy the health insurance of their choice.
which is really, we'll break it down each one. So this is really great because one of the things this has been observed from a very long time. I mean, Milton Friedman's talking about it in the 1960s, is that when you subsidize supply, you create perverse incentives to not change prices, right? Right. Even if you try to price fix on top of that, it never really produces the results you want.
What do you mean by subsidized supply? Just so we don't lose folks on that.
Yeah. So if you give colleges money, they're not going to decrease tuition costs. Duh.
Sure. So if you like with student loans, federal student loans, for example,
yeah,
if you make it cheaper to go to school, the market is going to say, well, then we can charge more.
Or state tuitions, or any of those kind of things from state funding of colleges, things like that. It just doesn't seem to do that.
Yeah.
When you make it easier to buy a house, it doesn't necessarily mean houses prices go down, all that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
So giving money directly to people allows them to economize on their purchasing, meaning like, I have these dollars, so I'm going to make sure I spend them wisely, and that provides an incentive for price declines from the supplier, right? It empowers the consumer at the deficit of the supplier, then that has to compete.
So basically it's saying, you have X amount of dollars to spend on healthcare, and now you get to choose where you spend it. So all of those different entities that might be competing for those dollars actually have to compete on price and say, hey, I'm a better value. You're going to get better services with me. It's going to be cheaper or whatever. And you can kind of shop around a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's also some stuff in here about, and we'll get to it maybe, is on, requiring insurance companies to post their prices publicly, more transparently, as well as hospitals posting those. So,
is there any change to buying insurance across state lines?
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything.
And that would be the association plan thing, which we'll get to towards the end. Okay, so I put this into Grok, and I was like, okay, we're just going to guess what this looks like, right? Because with the dynamic of this replacing the ACA enhanced premiums, if instead of doing that, they're going to do this and then maybe cut that budget a little bit, what would that look like? And it did pull for some resources of other people guessing about this. This is likely not an HSA for everybody.
Health savings account.
Yeah. This is likely a health savings account for people who are already in or are going to sign up for the ACA program.
Affordable Care Act.
Affordable Care Act. And their subsidized insurance program. So right now, if you sign up on the healthcare on the website that they have for the ACA, those companies go into that marketplace and they all get subsidies for participating in that marketplace. And they offer, cheaper insurance is the idea.
Well, and there's an important timing thing on this too, because the enhanced subsidies are out now, which is the COVID subsidies of this, right?
Right,
That's what came with there. So there is kind of this big push of like, and this has been a big attack point, an attack vector of Democrats and Republicans, is Republicans are taking away all your health care. The subsidies are going away. A lot of people are going to be out of luck because of this. So this is the response to this now, of pushing this into HSAs for specific people that qualify for it accordingly.
Right. Yeah. So that this is likely in a healthcare savings account. So if you're 18 to 49, $1,000 annually into a healthcare savings account. Not tremendous, but it does get you started in a healthcare savings account. And for a lot of people, they just don't do it, even though anyone can do a healthcare savings account. A lot of state programs have healthcare savings account that you can deduct against your state taxes too. So, for those folks, $1,000 into that, you can add more in. There are usually rules about what you can, how much you can add in, but it does roll over in every state program I've heard about. And you can, if you spend on that money, you can find yourself with $2,000 next year, right? And then you can build that savings so that then if a bad thing happens, you need to spend that money, you can.
Do you get interest on it?
My bank offers healthcare savings account. It has a small interest rate. It's closer to like not a really good savings account, but yeah.
Couple percent or
something.
Yeah.
It's not a lot.
Yeah.
But if you and it's not easy to get it built up large, at least if you have a family. But if you're an 18-year-old, $1,000 a year, that's a pretty good. That's all right.
Yeah.
Especially if you pay out with cash directly from a debit card at a healthcare savings account and not charging insurance, you're likely to be able to economize, and that really great.
So this bill would pay $1,000 a year per person, like every year.
Yeah. If they're in the income range, right?
Okay.
And of that age, right?
Gotcha.
So the income range is about less than $102,000 per person, per single person.
So under $100,000 a year income?
Yeah. So it's a lot of Americans. Like a lot
gross
of
or taxable?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. I think gross.
Okay. Yeah.
Other aspects of lowering insurance premiums is fund a cost sharing reduction program for healthcare plans, which would save taxpayers at least $36 billion. And I saw that's the CBO reporting on that. And reduce the most common Obamacare premiums by over 10%.
Cost sharing reduction program for healthcare plans. Interesting. What's that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I'm like, that's a nice talking point. I'm very curious to see what that actually turns out to be.
Cost sharing reduction program? That doesn't even make sense. Reducing cost sharing?
Yeah, so I guess this is a part of the ACA. They had a cost sharing reduction program, and this is fully funding it, which is supposed to be something that drives down costs. It's just because of it being fully funded. If it was left unfunded, premiums would skyrocket. Is that my understanding of what's supposed to happen here?
A cost sharing reduction is CSR, a type of ACA subsidy designed to make healthcare more affordable for low-income people buying insurance through ACA Marketplace. So fund that reduction program for healthcare plans. What? Does this mean spending money on Obamacare subsidies? I don't know.
Yeah.
Sort of what it seems like.
This was one of those ones where I was like, I'm not entirely sure what this actually means. It sounds nice. It sounds nice to get premiums down by 10%.
I don't
know exactly what the economics are of that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, audience. We don't know what this means. Thank you, Trump administration, for being very super clear.
That's one of the things that I was kind of teeing up front is like, we just have the broad-based talking points of like, this is the plan, but we don't know what exactly this looks like when it comes into the legislation. Like the specifics of these are very much, I imagine, open to change depending on legislation.
Is this the I have a concept of a plan?
It does
moment?
feel a little bit like that right now, which if these are the goals, then I'm down for it. These are the goals. But I am kind of skeptical of
what actually shakes out when this bill gets
exactly
actually gone through.
And now a lot of the stuff, this stuff has to come in. It is midterms. They need to get this done. Republicans control everything right now, so theoretically everything should be able to get through pretty quickly and easily. But we'll see how that actually ends up shaking out. Because if this was something that was waited on until 2027, then it's going to look a lot different. So we got to put it through right now, right?
Given that we expect Democrats to pick up the House.
Okay, so basically, Trump's plan, according to Grok, will fully fund the CSR, which are those silver level plans for the ACA, for the Affordable Care Act, which would end the loading of that. Lowers gross silver plans premium. Which is funny because we just got done talking about silver markets. Insurance reduces benchmark premium, shrinks federal spending on premium. I don't understand this. You're spending money to save money. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Anyways, so he's got to do some weird shit with that.
It can only good happen.
Everything is computer.
All right.
Other big aspects.
This one's the one I'm excited about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Is the price transparency stuff is. I think one of the big problems that most Americans have in the healthcare system right now is there's a lot of surprise costs that come up if you have an emergency. All of a sudden, there's like a surprise. All of a sudden, it's
surprise,
just like,
motherfucker.
You owe an extra $9,000.
Bennett, where are you?
Surprise, motherfucker.
So I'm kind of just skipping to the bottom one right now, unless we
the PMB one slightly above this, the cut kickback cost one that you did skip, I think is really important. That was really big. Joe, do you know how to explain that?
The PBM kickbacks?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do my best here. So PBMs are pharmacy benefit managers, which were originally designed to be advocates for consumers to bring costs down, but ultimately they were just absorbed by insurance companies and then were used as an additional profit layer. So they were just kicking back additional money to the insurance companies, usually on the backs of employers who were paying most Americans' healthcare benefits. So I think ending this would basically re-eliminate that layer of profit that didn't previously exist for the insurance companies and bring down costs for the end consumer, either that be the company that's sponsoring the plan or the individual. So
and the real perverse part of that is that PBMs were originally created to be like collective bargainers for pharmacies, but then they all got bought out by insurance companies.
Exactly.
Right. So now they're collective barging against their owners, which is like
good luck with that.
That doesn't make any sense.
It's going to go one way.
Yeah. So ending the kickbacks is I think a good move, at least on the underlying claim that this is fraud. You know what I mean?
Straight up.
If you're claiming that you are collectively bargaining and then you're doing the opposite by getting a lower price and then funding backwards with a kickback at the higher price, and the actual benefits never get to the actual consumers, then we're sitting there like, okay, this is lying,
Yes.
right? And I can understand why they would want to do that. In that practice.
absolutely.
Yeah, and other themes around just keeping them accountable and transparent is requiring health insurance companies to publish the percentage of their revenues that are paid out to claims versus overhead costs and profits on their websites. So just so that we can all see that. There's requiring health insurers to publish the percentage of insurance claims they reject and average wait times for routine care on their websites. Another one of those things where a lot of people just hanging out in limbo all the time. And then posting prices on the wall. Require any healthcare provider or insurer who accepts either Medicare or Medicaid to publicly and prominently post their pricing and fees to avoid surprise medical bills. All of those things are things that can just wreck people on the healthcare side.
For sure.
Because they don't know what they're getting, right?
And most often your private care physicians, like your primary care physicians, people who kind of don't do insurance and just do healthcare, they're more typically do post their prices, right? So this is going to be a really great way to kind of push that in through the rest of the marketplace for price transparency. Totally love this. It's awesome.
Yep.
And it is one of those things where I wonder, with more price transparency, we might even see price reductions happen as a byproduct of that.
Right.
Just because now it's much more like we can all see the data.
Yeah.
Competition becomes a lot more fluid because of that.
I just really hope we can get it so that they post it online, because that combined with large language models, they're able to access websites and aggregate data will really help people be able to find new providers more efficiently and quicker.
Yeah.
Which has always been the kind of liberal, progressive argument about why this doesn't solve anything, is because like people are sick, they don't want to shop for healthcare, and it's like, well, yeah, because it can be tedious, it can be difficult, but with LLMs, it suddenly becomes a lot easier, right?
For sure.
A lot of companies coming out with healthcare products right now on the LLM side. So, and that just as a byproduct too is healthcare costs are going to be drastically reducing over the next several years, I would have to imagine, assuming that all comes to fruition. Right?
On that note,
We live in a world with the Fed. They're going to level off a little bit. That's the best we can hope for.
That's the difficult part of that is like, because a lot of the functions of the healthcare industry could easily just be you use your little AI agent to help you figure out all of the stuff and all the logistics of everything to really clean up that mess.
I saw something recently, and I can't remember if it was at the state level. I think it was at the state level, but somewhere you can now use an AI LLM without like a doctor doing anything. It can see you, quote unquote, like you can discuss your symptoms with it, and it can prescribe and medications and like give you a treatment plan, all without the intervention of a doctor. And I just saw this. I don't have a lot of clarity on it, but like it seems like that's the direction that we're trending here as these things get stronger and better, more reliable. And you obviously want it to be very reliable if it's making medical recommendations to you.
Well, and there'll be specially trained ones that are purely just designed on medical stuff. Like you're not going to be using just, your average ChatGPT model. You're going to be using a very specifically trained one.
Right.
But even then, just like the LLM of ChatGPT or Grok or something is pretty useful. Like there's been some health complications in my family over the past year or so. And then I hear what the doctor's telling them, and I just type some things in and was like, okay, I understand what's going on now. Because like it's just a bunch of mumbo jumbo.
Yeah. Well, and there was the case of Grok helping the guy who had appendicitis, but the hospital turned him away. They ran some tests and said like, oh, you have indigestion or whatever, go home. And he like ran the symptoms through Grok, and it said you probably have appendicitis. It could be very serious. You should go back. And he went back and read them the symptoms and different things that Grok had sped out to him, and they ended up finding that he did have an appendix about to burst, and they operated on him. So, in a lot of these cases, you have your images, your different X-rays or MRIs or whatever, and these AI models are getting really good at detecting things that doctors can't or don't, because it's reading from a ton of information, and it's able to discern these small little differences that could make the difference between a positive or negative diagnosis, treatment or no treatment, something that gets missed or not. So it could be really powerful for sure.
Right. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
All right. So, the other part of that I do like is having the insurance providers post publicly their denial claim rate.
Yeah.
I think that's
a
huge.
big deal. That's a huge win, especially if you're like really pissed off. You know what I mean? You're a Mangione fan, right? You should be like, attaboy Trump at that point, right? I mean, they probably won't because they're all socialists, but you should probably be like, yeah, because if you've been ever pissed off by an insurance company, yeah. But I mean, this is important and a good thing. The trick is we need to get outside of the third party pay system itself, right? As Rob Wolf was saying when he was with us. But beyond that, like the fact that I'm locked into my insurance provider provided by my employer because it's the only way to get into a pool is the most ridiculous thing. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But until you get to that place, you don't really have consumer choice because right now it's like you might know that and you might get pissed off. But if you're locked into your employer's spine, it's going to be what it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dave, you added something into here about about how it was interesting that Rand Paul had a plan with more flexible HSAs, but this does not appear to be a part of it, at least as what we can see at the moment.
Yeah,
right?
there's some HSA stuff in Trump's plan, but unfortunately it's really limited to the Obamacare stuff. And this has been something we've been asking for on the federal level for some time, is basically just allowing HSAs to do more, right? Because if you have a plan that has HSA through your employer or you buy your own HSA, it's so great because it goes in, you don't get taxed on that money. That allows you to, really use a portion of your income for something so critical that doesn't end up getting taxed. But it has relatively limited uses. That has grown a little bit, but we really could see a lot more. If you want to zoom in a little bit, you can see what else you can use it for.
No, this is the classic Twitter. We'll just
There
zoom
we
out
go.
from
Yeah.
there,
So just go down a little bit. It goes to key provisions. Allows any membership organization so this is the associate healthcare plan. Allows any membership organization, think like Costco or online retailers like Amazon, rideshare services, credit union, churches, or other associations, to sponsor group healthcare plans across state lines.
Oh,
That would be huge, right? Because you could be like, oh, I don't want to go with my employer plan. I'm going to go with Costco because I already have a Costco membership, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, or whatever other service you like. Maybe we'll start a human reaction healthcare plan, whatever. Yeah, just for our listeners. Enables this group to collectively negotiate lower insurance premiums by pooling large number of members, right? So that's the association health plans. The HSA thing is above that, I think. Would allow make HSAs available to all Americans regardless of income level, and that's one of the tricks about HSAs for some states for federal HSA access. And then you notice that you can't use HSAs with bigger insurance bills, and this would loosen that up. Increases the annual contribution limit, right? That's really important, especially for older Americans trying to save into retirement, because if it rolls over, right, you can put that money into your 401k, right, and get it trickled out, or maybe you want that as immediate cash access, right? And so that just gives a lot more flexibility, especially for older folks. And then another one is like allowing people to actually use their healthcare to pay on their insurance premiums. Right, so that means you can use your healthcare savings account to streamline those through. So all your insurance premium costs are going through tax free.
dude, that's great. It says broadens qualified expenses to include health insurance premiums, as you just mentioned, but also vitamins and dietary supplements, gym memberships, and wearable fitness trackers, emphasizing prevention and wellness.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
because so much of that is not covered. I mean, some things are like, and they'll often say on the website like HSA qualified or whatever, but that would be so cool.
Yeah, it would be.
I don't know how I feel about the wearables. I feel like that's a way for insurance companies to deny you based on your stats.
Fair enough.
I don't know. The only way to get this bill passed, you've got the Apple lobby on your side, and they want to sell watches, goddammit. So Trump's plan does not allow HSA funds to be used for monthly insurance premiums, which I think would be the number one thing. You could just add that provision, and you would get a tremendous amount of opportunity for regular folks to reduce their taxable liability going towards healthcare costs, which would be a driver for a lot of families, especially
for sure.
A lot of those dollars.
Interesting.
So bummer that they're not including Rand Paul's great ideas. They should be, but unfortunately they're not.
I guess moving on to kind of the next big legislative side and things that are going on right now is there's a bunch of drama going on with credit cards, and there's kind of a lot of populist energy going against the credit card companies, which Trump is helping fuel by tweets like this. Please be informed that
So weird that he says that, leads it in like that.
Hear ye, hear ye.
Thank you for your attention on this matter.
We're 6 months from that.
He's going to come out in a robe, in a crown. Yeah.
Please be informed that we will no longer let the American public be ripped off, in quotes, by credit card companies that are charging interest rates of 20 to 30% and even more, which festered unimpeded during the Sleepy Joe Biden administration. Affordability! Exclamation point.
All capitals.
Effective January 2020, 2026, I, as president of the United States, am calling for a 1-year cap on credit card interest rates of 10%. Coincidentally, the January 20th date will coincide with the 1-year anniversary of the historic and very successful Trump administration. Thank you for your attention on this matter. Make America great again, President Donald J. Trump.
I can see why.
Crazy tweet.
I can see why people hate him. I can. I just can. You know?
That is just. It's so funny. The structure of a Trump tweet is just. A sight to behold. We're never going to see that.
He's
again.
just tapped into his ego and his shadow to such a degree that your average person, I can understand why they're just like, like
it's a lot.
Just some naked about him in the latter half, talking about how getting scammed by credit card companies.
Yeah.
Well, and there was a team here that all compiled this tweet together. That's how these tweets always go on. It's just like capitalize that one, like that type of stuff.
I don't think there's a team. I saw a clip from behind the scenes where it's just literally him dictating to some social media manager, and she's just typing it into a phone.
I know people that have been in the room with the Trump tweet happening, and it was a whole experience. Is my understanding.
I'd love to be a fly on the wall, man.
So
I know words. I had the best words.
The president actually in the United States of America, according to the Constitution, can't just declare an interest rate cap. So what's going on here, Kyle?
Well, so that is the thing is
Michael Scott declaring bankruptcy. In the office.
I declare bankruptcy.
I declare bankruptcy. Well, so that is the thing is, as I peeled back the layers of what's going on here, I found a fascinating narrative thread that is just like there's a lot of propaganda, a lot of shell games going on with what I think is actually wanting to be achieved in all of this, because there's really two bills that are going on right now when it goes on with the credit card companies, and they do two very different things. But it's like everybody's hyping up this one bill that's probably not going to make it. But meanwhile,
which
the
is
other
this
bill,
thing,
which is this thing.
Okay,
I think that this thing is not going to be the thing that goes through. But so there's two bills. One is the Credit Card Competition Act, and the other is what is it called? The Credit Card Interest Rate Cap Act, which is this thing right here, which I think is the red herring. But what this bill is it's a bipartisanship bill that is sponsored by Bernie and Holly. As sponsors, and it's just been lingering in committee. It's not really going anywhere, is my understanding of the current environment of it. And but this is the Trump rallying cry is around this right now. This is, and as far as I'm seeing it, this is the bill that you get all the influencers all hyped up in, because this is the thing that you can do the populist energy for. Mm-hmm. You can kind of get everybody excited. Yeah, we're taking it to the credit card companies. We're going to cap their rates at 10% for a year. We're going to do this. It's going to be awesome for the midterms. Rah, rah, rah. But meanwhile, the bill that my understanding is likely the thing that's going to go through, and what really a lot of the battle lines are between like small businesses and major retailers versus the credit card companies and the banks, that's kind of the battle lines being drawn, is there's an attempt to break up the duopoly of Visa and MasterCard on the payment rail side of things. And what I mean by that is 85% of the country's credit card processing is done on the payment rails of Visa and MasterCard. And by them essentially forcing the banks of like, you can't use other people's payment rails. You got to use the ones owned by our subsidiary companies. What the Credit Card Competition Act is, it forces banks, if they're issuing a credit card, you can use their rails, but you also have to have two unaffiliated rails that aren't associated with their company.
With Visa or MasterCard.
Yeah, or just of that company. So you can still use Visa's payment rails. You can still use MasterCard's payment rails, but this opens up the opportunities for something like Shazam or any of these other payment rail processing companies.
Shazam, the song recognition company?
No, Shazam, obviously Shaquille O'Neal.
Shaquille O'Neal.
And the amazing movie from 1996.
This is a big lobbying effort from Shaquille O'Neal and music.
Mandela effect here. I thought that was Kazam.
It is.
Oh,
thank you.
Shazam's the DC character.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Just making sure I'm not living in an alternate universe.
Shazam. My bad.
Yeah,
I misremembered.
Because I think what the kind of strategic element of this is
strategery
is that broadcasting to the American public of like, we're going to be messing with payment rails is not a sexy topic.
And not at all.
So we're going to take it to the credit card companies by reducing caps. Like that's the shell game.
So
that's
they're basically
right now.
they're selling a bill that's very boring might still be helpful, but very boring.
Very helpful.
By hyping up a bill that is very popular, but highly unlikely to pass. So they're basically just selling one bill as another bill.
That's what I would guess is happening.
It's just like a smokescreen then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're straight lying.
And this one's so brazenly for his election. It's 1 year.
I wish you weren't a liar.
During election year, so they have something to campaign on for the midterms, and then it goes right back. And then additionally, a credit card cap interest rate it has some substantial trade-offs.
Right. What would happen if you were to cap credit card interest rates?
An interest rate is a price. So if you cap a price, there's always going to be a shortfall. There's going to be people who will lose out because you're now shortening the amount of people who then get access to credit.
Right.
A lot of poor people end up getting denied as the likelihood, probably.
Because they are
access to credit cards.
Because they are less likely to be able to repay, more likely to default on that loan, effectively, right? So they're higher risk, therefore they get charged a higher interest rate.
Yes.
That all makes sense. However, credit card interest rates aren't lower for someone with good credit.
Actually, I looked that up because we talked about it before, and I was like, wait a minute.
Are they?
And they are.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. It does depend. It will determine on the APR that they offer you.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how you get new credit card.
It's like 17% instead of 22%.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Right. Yeah. Well, hey, if it was a mortgage, you would jump at the
for sure.
opportunity, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
Credit card's the same thing. But credit cards are very dangerous. But they are important tools, especially for lower income folks, to be able to bridge gaps in affordability. I know my family, when we were coming up, used credit cards strategically. Sometimes they got a little out of control and we had to make sacrifices to pay them off. But that's how life is. You got years of plenty and years of deficit, and credit cards can help make the difference there. So it would be negative for some people. I don't think it would be too bad if it's only 1 year, though, right? And it's obviously a clear electoral play, right, at that point.
Well, and it's also because
even if the bill doesn't go anywhere, right?
Well, so also the swipe fee of every time a merchant swipes a credit card, that fee's gone up 50% since COVID.
Is that right?
Yeah. So
those payment rules are expensive, Kyle.
Yeah. That's kind of the thing is like nobody really understands how credit cards actually work, like the actual processing side. I have a little insight in that because I'm like super hyper fixated on crypto, so like I kind of understand payment rails to an extent. But people don't like. There's a track that goes like people they swipe their credit card and they're just like, now I have the item, but they're not realizing that there's like, okay, the data's going to your merchant, then it's going to the acquiring bank, and then it's going into this nebulous network, and then it's settling off at another bank. And there's like a whole financial system that exists on the back end there that costs quite a bit of money. There's a lot of back end work, a lot of things that are going on right there. And so what the monopoly is that MasterCard and Visa have is there's like a train track, and it's like you can only use our train track. What this bill is forcing banks to do is you can't just have this one train track. You have to provide options, and the merchants have to be able to have a choice on which option that they want to have.
Okay,
which
so
is
it
one of those
happens-
things that brings down the cost.
It happens at the merchant level, where if I own a brick and mortar retail store of some kind, I can go with Visa, I can go with MasterCard, or I can go with one of these other two players. So really, it's just forcing competition into that space.
Yep, exactly.
Which could actually bring down processing fees, which do get fairly substantial if I think if you've bought anything reasonably expensive in probably the last several years, pretty customary now for the retailer to say, yeah, you can pay with credit card, but we're going to charge you an extra 3%, right? Or if you pay with cash, it's fine. Or debit card, it's fine.
Which,
no extra fee, but with credit card, it's higher.
I think. So I've noticed a lot of companies do that now, or since COVID basically, have been like, there's an extra fee if you're using a credit card.
Yeah.
I thought that was illegal. I thought that was a law that was passed that you can't do that back in like the 90s or something. Double
Let's
check.
find
Yeah,
out.
check that. I've just seen that so much since COVID, and I'm like, I remember always thinking that was illegal, or I heard somebody tell me that was illegal. Maybe I'm just like fabricating something in my mind, but it is interesting.
If it's illegal, then I've got
lot of
some
people.
calls to make to the tip line. I want some money back, motherfucker.
Get the state auditor on
Yeah,
that.
I thought it was like under Bill Clinton or something that they made it that you can't charge a different rate for people using credit cards or something, or maybe that went away or at some point. Maybe I'm not sure.
Okay, so it looks like recent data shows surcharges are prohibited in states like Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, and New
It's a
York.
state thing. Okay,
Montana caps credit card surcharges at 3%.
interesting.
So
Okay.
it sounds like a state by state issue.
State by state issue.
Get that bill passed, Kyle.
Interesting.
One question about the payment rails thing is, does this open opportunities for crypto
Yeah.
payment rails, which I think is another important angle that the crypto community should be excited about?
Yeah, I would suspect that, because that's been one of the big things is it's hard to get other merchants to use your rails because the banks that they're using are forcing you to use solo rails. But now when there's options here is that you'll probably end up seeing a bunch of like different chains, like, I don't know, Coinbase's chain Base or something will probably be heavily integrated in something that will probably get adopted very quickly once this is able to go through. A lot of like second layer Ethereum chains that are popular would jump at this and it would just be big, especially when we're seeing all the stablecoin adoption. And I know on the crypto side, there's a lot of stress going on with the Clarity Act right now because it's a lot of back and forth happening. And one of the big pushes, just another attack on the banks, I guess, from the administration and from another attack vector, is there's a lot of pushback going on right now where the banks really don't want you on the stablecoin side to be able to get yields from owning stablecoins, because as soon as yields are happening on stablecoins, deposits just flow out of the banks. What's the point of having a bank anymore?
Right.
You just go to stablecoins and you start using DeFi. But those are all like the points in the crypto legislation on the Clarity Act that are contentious because of the banking lobby, right? So it's not just this credit card thing that's kind of attacking and that's also a big part of the swipe fee is actually on the bank side. It actually affects the banks more than it does the credit card companies. The credit card companies are eating a lot of costs while the banks are just like upcharging them. That's another aspect of this that I think goes unwarranted.
Always
unnoticed.
those fucking banks, man.
And what are they doing? They're literally just moving money around.
Yeah.
Come on, this is all done by software. You don't need the money.
Well,
it's not like he had some lady writing in a ledger someplace. You know what I mean?
Hey, how dare you disparage Ethel's good work?
Well, that was necessary at one point. And I can see you needing the payment then, but not anymore. It's all done automatically.
I know, right? It's like the
ridiculous.
$20 wire transfer fee. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
This is all computers doing stuff.
I know. I saw a lot of people, like Bill Ackman was complaining about this. He said, I think President Trump's goal of reducing credit card interest rates is a worthy and important one. My concern about capping rates at 10% is that doing so will inevitably cause millions of Americans to have their credit cards canceled, and for companies to lose the ability to adequately price subprime credit risk. There's a lot of these types of things where there is the economics, but again, all the narrative is happening around the cap rates.
Right.
But kind of what I'm saying, what my prediction and what my understanding of what's going on behind the scenes is, it's not about the cap rates. Actually, that's just the rallying cry that has everybody like, hey, look over here. Well, meanwhile, we're gonna try to solve this non-sexy issue, which is payment rails that nobody understands. Right.
There you go.
Is there an ulterior motive to the payment rail piece? Like, or is it just that they're trying to do a good thing, but they know they can't sell it well because it's not sexy, so they're just gonna, throw you a shiny thing over here while they do the work over here?
I think that is, and it's one of these things where there's probably cost benefits to this. Is there's going to be problems that occur, and then there's also going to be good things that occur from it. Like the competition is probably going to bring down prices, but also, and one of the like social complications I would say that probably exists here is now there's going to be a lot of people that really want cap rates going down.
Right.
Like there's going to be political demand for the rates.
Wait, we can do that, and then all of a sudden now it's spurring demand.
Yeah.
And because like that's the thing where I'm like, I'm not really into that for the same reasons that you laid out there, Dave. But I do really like the idea of introducing more competition on the payment rail side. And that's something that you probably have kind of like the crypto czar and David Sachs. That's probably a lot of what the work is happening there and trying to get those things moving on crypto too. But it's also not just crypto. There's other payment processing companies that just aren't Visas or MasterCards that would greatly benefit from this and probably help both consumers and businesses greatly if there was actual competition that existed there. There is another worrisome choke point. Speaking is that I had somebody bring this up to me. Was there is a part in the legislation that is an approved list that's worked on by the Federal Reserve and the Treasury on payment rails that are not security risks. And that gets updated every 2 years, according to legislation. I just see that. I don't think it's a problem right now, but I could see that being a potential attack vector and choke point. Think Operation Choke Point and how they tried to squeeze out like marijuana companies and crypto companies. Like I could see that being a thing that is used by perhaps a more nefarious government of Biden levels to kind of squeeze out people that they don't like. I could see that down the road, but right now it's, I can't see you not having that as a thing where like they're going to have approved lists and things like that.
Right. It's going to happen with the management.
Regardless, right? Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of my hypothesis of where this is all going. I do worry about that other bill of like that being the big push on a populist level, because that's going to be something that rallies both right and left.
Well, and also it's also short-term thinking, right? Because when it doesn't happen, you're going to be a lot of people disappointed come election time.
Yeah.
So that's the risk of the distraction mechanism.
Speaking of short-term thinking, isn't worrying about the interest rate of a credit card pretty short-term thinking when we should be talking about monetary policy? If people weren't struggling with inflation so much, would you have to put all these things on a credit card?
Well, that's
why we need $1.5 trillion defense budget, Joe.
Absolutely.
To solve the money problem.
Well, this is theoretically something that combats inflation, because prices going up is, one of the variables in that is the swipe rate going up, right? So this is something that's a kind of a marginal percentage.
It's a marginal percentage.
It's a pretty big percentage. It's a pretty big percent
compared to the 3% annual inflation rate, 4%, whatever. I mean, but I get what you're saying, Kyle. Like you're saying,
it's
not that
all
it's
of
a
the
bad
above attack,
thing.
right?
And Joe's point is like this is maybe majoring in the minors, right?
To quote Rob Wolf.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's just it's something. It's not a bad thing. It's probably a good thing. And I feel the same way about the healthcare thing. Is all these are relatively good policies and don't really have any dejection. Yeah. The question is there a bigger bite that would make a bigger difference in everyday Americans' life? And that's a totally legitimate question too, and like a decent challenge for the administration.
It is, and I don't know. I'm a little cynical about this administration right now because they've dropped the ball on so many things that were so meaningful and important, and this feels like they're trying to just gin up momentum with something that's kind of inconsequential.
Yeah.
Overall,
I wouldn't say this is inconsequential though. That's the thing. I feel like this is kind of like a weird poo-poo of something that's not inconsequential.
Well, I mean, look, maybe it could make a more substantial impact than I think, but I'm looking at $1.5 trillion defense budget, and I'm looking at the operation that just happened in Venezuela extrajudicially, and I'm looking at the Epstein files situation that never happened, and I'm looking at all these promises that were made and not kept, and I'm thinking that this is like just kind of peanuts compared to that stuff.
I think Dan Bongino would call you a black pillar.
Yeah.
I would too.
Black shirt, black pillar.
I mean,
we had that conversation last episode though, so I don't think we need to go into it.
Yeah,
more.
that's fair. I think fortunately I wasn't here for that. I heard it was pretty spicy.
It was fun.
Good.
It was fun.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of people message me about it, both for me or anti me, and for Dave or anti Dave. I had a very split response rate for it.
I did too. It was fun. So, and I think in the larger picture that you're going to here, Joe, is that there's a lot of people have a lot of economic pain going on.
Yeah.
And, the administration is making moves. Are the moves big enough? Are they the right moves?
Right.
These are valid strategic questions.
Sure.
And when I look to places where we are spending so much political capital that the administration is like beating up on Thomas Massie every day, rather than and spending lots of political capital on things like the big beautiful bill, but then not passing anything else really that year, right? Like what else happened legislatively last year? Mm-hmm. Minor things and the big beautiful bill.
Right.
No other like major deregulatory or economically focused efforts. And not even with like the administration did this many regulatory repeals. That was a major narrative in the first Trump administration, is they're repealing all these rules and regulations. How awesome is that? They haven't seen that cycle. Have you guys?
No. Allegedly, at least like according to like Chris Wright and Energy Secretary and all this stuff, 2026 is supposed to be kind of that's this year priority type of stuff. At least on like the EPA stuff. We've been complaining a lot about the EPA lately, but that's supposed to be kind of this year's really push. But it's also one of those things where, year by year is probably going to have to continue to be pushed even further.
Well, right, and it gives credence to the idea of like making base hits, right? Like we talked about regarding the Maha situation. Maybe banning natural flavors or food dyes isn't really the change we want to be made ultimately, but if it's a step in the right direction, I do appreciate and respect the step in the right direction. Any improvement to the cost of living, even if it's seems somewhat marginal in terms of reducing credit card swipe rates and things like that, if it's positive, I'm for it. I want to see the momentum continue towards the bigger things.
Yeah.
Because so far the momentum feels like it's really dwindled, and I'd just love to see that pick back up.
I will say maybe one final thing on the credit card side is just a potential con that I do see is even if the interest rate cap does not go into effect, I could still see there being certain operational costs that are pretty heavy on the credit card side of this. And I could see there being something like denial of credit card service or reduction of rewards programs or something like that as a result of these things. That's definitely a very potential thing that would be, a lot of people, they would look at that and be like, oh, bummer, that kind of a thing, right?
All my points for my airline are gone away.
I wouldn't be surprised to see a reduction on that. Just economically speaking, it kind of feels like that would make sense.
I'm pissing people off.
So
what I was going with that was that there is, I think, this bill has been sitting there for this entire time, since relatively early last year, and just hasn't moved. And if that political capital is spent on this bill, I think it'd be a massive win for the administration because it has a bipartisan support. It's much closer to the criminal justice reform dynamic in the first Trump administration than other sorts of efforts that you might be able to make in the deregulatory space, especially after Ezra Klein wrote his book, Abundance, that brought a lot of Democrats into like the whole idea of like, well, maybe sometimes the EPA isn't always right. Maybe it has actually become overshooting and become something that's actually prohibiting poor people from being able to advance in our society. And the bill I'm talking about is Senate Bill 2651. It's the ROAD Act, standing for Renewing Opportunity in the American Dream. That's a good, solid
acronym.
That's a good acronym. It actually lands, you know what I mean? So it incorporates 27 previously introduced bills, which I did not know. That's pretty wild. That is all written by Republicans and Democrats and all that kind of stuff. And these are the bills that never get introduced to committee and just sit there as drafts. So what it does is it boosts housing supply by streamlining permitting, reduce local zoning, regulatory hurdles, incentivizes denser development, and supports modular prefab construction. So getting into what that means. And also modernizes financing, right? So what we're looking at for that is mortgage options, different financing when it comes to rural loans, especially, and low-income loans, and housing tax credits. It reduces the regulatory barriers at the federal level, which is really important because there are substantial barriers at the federal level. We oftentimes narrowly focus on local and state, but there are some in the federal that really could make a huge difference. And it has some new oversight and coordination, instruction agencies basically to instead of all the incentives for housing have for a very long time been about constraining supply to increase quality of housing, as opposed to increase the quantity of housing and therefore actually be able to fight price inflation. So the most important stuff on the deregulatory component of this, of reducing the barriers, is streamlining environmental reviews. So this is NEPA, right?
NEPA.
National Environmental Protection Act. It says it's going to right-size National Environmental Protection Act reviews for small-scale infill and certain housing projects, right? So when you're talking about where you've already built a house and you're going to add on to it, you don't have to do an environmental review as profound as a brand new housing construction project, an entire community in a wetland, right? And right now, there's really no regulatory difference between those two things,
right?
Which is absurd, right? Even Democrats support that, right?
Yeah.
So another one is HUD does a bunch of stuff that is actually becomes a barrier. It requires HUD to identify and address administrative procedural hurdles to federal housing programs that slow development. So when you're developing Section 8, there's a lot of paperwork and a lot of work you have to do it. This is going to try to streamline that, cut that down, make it easier to develop those sorts of programs. So this is like publishing guidelines, best practices, and policy actions for overcoming the barriers for locals as well. So it's instructing. So right now, and this is actually how housing got started in the first place, like zoning. Zoning got started because LBJ wanted to basically blow up what was popular on the East and West Coasts nationwide by saying localities, we're going to give you access to money and grants if you implement zoning. And that's what blew up zoning into the infill of the rest of America, overall, the rest of flyover country like our state. So the this bill requires all the different agencies basically to start addressing that issue and reverse that the opposite way, saying, well, we've gone too far in zoning and we're going to try to unwind that and actually focus on people's ability to deploy their property in ways that work for them on the ground. Promoting land use and zoning reforms. This abolishes a lot of outdated regulatory barriers from the Regulatory Barriers Clearinghouse, the RBC, and tasks the HUD Assistant Secretary for Policy Development and Research to develop and publish non-binding guidelines and best practices for zoning. So this is an encouragement on that level. LBG did going the opposite direction. The other one, and the most important to me, I think that was probably most impacts most amount of rural people, especially in poor rural folks, is modernizing the modular and prefab home requirements. So back in the day, and there's lots of different accounts for why this happened, but at least one of the, I think, most persuasive accounts is on behalf of the steel lobby, they wrote a law requiring steel chassis on prefab and modular homes. And you don't need a steel chassis, but they required it. And that has made, of course, prefab and modular homes much more expensive. So right now, there's really two codes you can build a prefab house on, state code or federal code. Depending on how you design it, it'll apply for either one. And it's really biased against some of the smallest, most condensed, like smaller housing that is governed by federal code, specifically because you have to have a giant steel frame in it.
Interesting.
And that's obviously drives up the cost because steel is expensive compared to wood and other components.
And is that like foundational, like underneath or throughout?
Underneath.
Okay.
Steel chassis. Well, it's kind of the corners that kind of holds it together.
Sure.
Yeah.
So when we say like modular and prefab, are we talking about like single wide, double wide kind of trailer homes? Because I know there's a lot of different kinds of modular homes that are coming about now that are built in modules, like big blocks, and you can build a 5,000 square foot house out of these prefab modular pieces. But these are different things.
And so one of the values, one of the biggest economic opportunities in housing for a long time has been, why can't we manufacture homes the way we do other products like TVs and stuff like that, right? And there's a bunch of barriers to that. It's huge, it's hard to move around, all that kind of stuff. But you do see them, like you're on the road, on the interstate, you see this giant house being, moved down the street. That's what that is. So yeah, you do have those. It gets really in the weeds, but there are certain dimensions and requirements that mean whether or not it applies to federal code or state code. And the reason why people don't use federal code as much as they otherwise would for certain dimensions and certain geometries, it doesn't work out. It doesn't pencil out because of the steel chassis. So this would allow a lot more diversity and availability in the marketplace for more affordable trailers and modular homes and prefabs, which are all slightly different categories, to be applied and be more competitive in the marketplace.
Cool. That sounds great.
Yeah. So really big deal. Now, the status on this is a bit of a black pill. Speaking of black pills, is it got out of the Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs 24-0. Right. So it smashes out of committee, no problem, on July 29th.
Last
year.
Oh God.
Yeah. So is it hanging out in the House right now? Or?
No, it hasn't passed the Senate yet. It's just been sitting around.
It's only in Senate committee that it's gotten through. Okay.
Yeah, the Senate Majority Leader, Thune, has yet to move it to the floor. It's like, why? Why? I mean, of all the pressure you could be placing on freaking Thomas Massey, why isn't John Thune moving the housing out? I mean, like, that would be, maybe there's a plan. I'll get it. And if it happens by the end of the year, I'll eat my shoe, whatever. like, okay, great. I'll be happy to eat my shoe. But in the meantime, I'm like, you want this to pass so that you can get the downstream effects of the looser rules so that people can actually benefit from these.
Right.
During
your administration.
Yeah, these timescales are oftentimes 5-6 years for housing development. So if you're going to get the opportunities, much less the fact that a lot of this is changing regulatory barriers in the federal level that then require the development phase, which is a long time. So if you want this to happen by the time you leave presidency, do it now. But fortunately, it haven't happened. The other part of the tragedy of that is right after it passed, it was attached to the National Defense Authorization Act and passed the Senate. Right, so the Senate would pass it. But then this House stripped it out of the National Defense Authorization Act. And the reason why that happened is there's just a certain set of Republicans in the House who don't want to see housing reform.
Oh, are they NIMBYs?
The insider language is NIMBYs, right? Not in my backyarders, right?
Yeah.
The people who are like, well, if we allow this to happen, especially with like we're talking about environmental review for infill, that will allow people to put an ADU in my community that I want to see.
Right. Or put a large complex, a quadplex or something that's going to attract the wrong type of people to my neighborhood.
If zoning changes based upon the local recommendation and the way this money will be tied to local zoning reforms. And this is really just like the Republicans bending to pressure from the boomer class, right? And the wealthiest class interest groups of the Republican Party. Which is really unfortunate because it's not principled in what you would want a conservative Republican Party to be principled in, which is property rights.
Right.
Like the founding idea of Western civilization is this idea that you have a castle and so does the king. And that castle might be a little tiny hamlet, but it's yours and no one else can tell you what you could do with it. If you want to add an ADU, you can do that. If you buy a piece of property to realize your dream of being a landlord and building that apartment building, you get to do that, right? But unfortunately, there's a certain set of people who are opposed to that because their housing appreciation is more important than the freedom that their fellow Americans have to develop their own livelihood.
It's like their vision of property rights is I have a right to the fact that my house has gone up in value and I don't want it to go down in value. So you can't do what you want with your property because I want to protect my own. So it's extending their property rights beyond their borders.
So it's also an important reminder for people. Just remember, just because your preferred party has ownership of the House or the Senate, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden all of the legislation that you want to get passed through is just a slam dunk and will go through. I think that's always an important thing to remember of like, oh, this thing got through, but like it got a bunch of stuff got stripped. It's just like, yeah, because there's a lot of different interests that exist there. And like everybody wants their stuff and it's like, oh, it's just a failure of this person or that person. But like, there's a lot of interests entwined in all of this that want different things.
Right.
And most of them have money and most of them are not in your interest.
Yes. And this is where the leadership really matters, right? The House leadership matters, right? No one lost their committee assignments because they stripped the Road Act out of the NDAA, right? But you will lose your committee assignments if you vote against the NDAA, right?
Right.
If you vote against the big beautiful bill, there's going to be political party consequences. They're not going to do that for the Road Act.
Primary you out of your district.
Yeah, right. If it, like Rand Paul gets all the hate, he gets all that public pressure. That didn't happen on the 7 Republicans who got it out of the NDAA, right? We are applying this selectively, and that's where the biggest criticism could happen. I think there's a reasonable criticism. It's like the priority selection here isn't really America first, unless we get to the place where the right pressure is being applied to these moderate Republicans who actually don't believe in what the Republican Party is supposed to stand for, which is in almost every party's state platform, and says that they believe. And you will do it against the guys who are voting against more spending.
How do you? Yeah. I guess in some ways it's just get more people that aren't going to just kowtow to the boomer vote on this, but like, because I'm like wondering how you actually flip those votes in any meaningful way. I guess it is just that, just get new people in.
Well, or it's pressure, right?
Yeah.
These guys will. I mean, if Donald Trump came out and said we're going to pass the Road Act, God damn it, that would make it a much different environment, right? I mean, and I don't know why that is. I mean, maybe the Trump administration isn't totally behind it. I don't know.
Yeah, but
I'm saying that. Let me tell you a story. This is my soapbox, everybody. So please forgive me for getting on my soapbox for a minute.
Do you have some violin music?
I wrote a failed op-ed on this. I couldn't get anyone to place it because the election went by too quick. No, the newspapers, and I just got placed in the Washington Times today, actually.
Hey, congratulations!
Thank you. So in this was the New Jersey governor's race. The governor of New Jersey, the Republican, the incumbent, ran a campaign that was, we need to keep the Garden State beautiful. So we got to stop from building any new housing.
Oh boy.
Yeah. His Democrat opponent is, not great on a lot of issues that I don't agree on, but she ran on, we need to build more houses so there's more places for people to live because houses are expensive. Who won? Like it was that simple. And he had this beef with a particular piece of, New Jersey law. And I can see why they don't like that because it's kind of central planning and it kind of requires more low-income housing to be built and all that kind of stuff, Section 8 orientated type stuff. But he could have also came in and said, hey, I don't like that. But I do really think that the free market should be able to provide this, and we need to lower the barriers for them doing that. And he might have gotten a lot better, outcome out of that. If Republicans in 2026 do not have a thing they can run on affordability, they will lose. And I'm talking about the House, and guys, it depends on where you look at it. But if you look at the public polling on this, it is disastrous. People's sense of inflation does not start at last year. It starts from 2020, right? And I looked at a statistic today that was from 2010 to today. Electricity prices in the United States have gone up 285%. That is just inflation. That's not because there was suddenly a big supply constraint or a huge new demand. That's before the data centers.
Right.
That's just inflation. When you look at the larger time scale, which is actually how people live, right? Which is, I remember buying gas for $1.15, those sorts of experiences are actually how people experience this sort of stuff, unless you're doing something, anything to actually run on this. And the Road Act is probably one of the best things they could do to say, hey, we passed the Road Act. It's going to take time, but we're working for it. This isn't something that can happen quickly, but I passed this bill. This is all the cool things it does that's going to allow us to do more. And it's principled. We can stand on something that our birthright as Americans, property rights, when we do it.
This is one of those types of bills where I wouldn't be surprised if the reason why it's just kind of hung out in limbo for a while is because it's like, let's wait for the midterms. Kind of a thing, like wait for it to be something that we can use for the affordability agenda.
Maybe
during I could see that being a point of conversation of like, let's hold off on this till now. For now.
It's weird because Thune let it get put into the NDAA, or maybe it was a mistake and it just got lost in the shuffle and got put in, and he wasn't aware of it. There's lots of explanations there, and I really like to think that's true.
There's such a focus on affordability, like as a buzzword right now that has been climbing up over the last couple of months. So it's one of those things where I could see it being like, remember that Road Act? Throw it into whatever these big packages of bills that we're going to do a few months down the road as we're hitting like the summer kind of a thing. I could imagine that strategically. Is that the case? I don't know.
Well, and this is something I'm involved on, right? In the past, I was like, look, what they call the zombie. They call it the zombie filibuster, right? And so the filibusters originally understood was that you literally had to talk and to exhaust debate. And at some point, it kind of became, well, unless we have 60 votes, we're not going to even vote on it, right? It's really broken the Senate, that practice. And at the end of the day, I think if Republicans don't do something now and end the zombie filibuster so that they can get these bills passed, I just don't see it happening. Right. And in something much more substantial, this bill can pass with 60 votes because it has Democrats that can support it. And a lot of Democrats voted against the NDAA, and we're all opposed to that because of, Trump's NDAA. But the Road Act on its own, almost every state, a lot of states, I think about 10 states have done zoning deregulation and other kind of things like that, like Montana has. And those states, almost always pass because they're bipartisan, right? Because some Democrats, they like the planning, they like all that stuff. They want to have all the parks and all the things, and Republicans don't want to have their single family homes ever changed ever, right? And it almost happens because you have principled Republicans who believe in property rights and markets, and Democrats who have said, "Hey, I'll take it as long as it decreases price for poor people." And they actually care about poor people. They're the non-Wiggum peer Democrats, if you know what I'm saying. So
they actually care about the poor.
Yeah, right. That's the difference there. So, anyways, I'm off my soapbox now. That's the Road Act. Hopefully, it does pass, and hopefully, you're right, Kyle. Hopefully, they pass it this summer.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things where like. When I'm just thinking about the game theory of things, I very much, this would be one of those things that you want to have as a strong talking point going into midterms to reduce the casualties that always happen with midterms. And I could see, same with Thorelling, frankly, for all three topics we covered, that they would all be those types of things where like, these are very good populist energy type of issues to carry forward through the year.
And what I like about the healthcare one is because you can immediately point to it, right? Like you're on the campaign trail, you're talking to some guy and he's like, healthcare premiums are crazy. It's like, I get it. Go check the website of your healthcare provider right now and tell me if there's prices on there. And if there's not, go report them to this agency because we just passed this bill. You see what I mean? Like it sells itself so good. So that's one of the reasons why I think it's a great idea. It could go further, but I understand why they're kind of striking this balance too.
Yeah. Well, I guess my question regarding the Road Act specifically is how do you sell it to the boomer constituency, which is still very dominant in the voting populace, to vote against their own not in my backyard kind of interest?
Yeah, I mean, you do segmentation like you do for any campaign or business or whatever, where when you're in front of the big boomer crowd, you don't talk about it. And when you're in front of other people, you talk about it, right? That's the common tactic. On top of that, like if confronted about it, you're saying, look, I get where you're coming from, but I am standing on the American birthright of property rights. Where I'm standing on this issue is that at the end of the day, you own your property. And that means you can do with it what you like. Now, you can't do everything. We can't start a dairy farm in part of it. If you really affect your neighbors down the street by a smell or a sound or something like that, that's material, then we have nuisance law for that. And we have zoning for that. We have real uses for those sorts of things. But when it comes to allowing me to build an ADU so my grandmother doesn't have to live in a nursing home, well, I'm going to do that, goddammit. That's how you sell it.
Yeah.
Or you say, you want your kids to live in your state? You got to build more housing. And this is how we do it.
That's really my biggest question is, there seems to be a large contingency of boomers that are acting in their own best interest to the detriment of their children and grandchildren. They're pricing them out of home ownership by standing on this. I won't allow more housing supply to be built in my town. So like how do you talk somebody out of that?
Well, everybody's following their interests, right?
Yeah.
And
Oftentimes it's about seeing the larger picture, right? You're trying to get them to zoom out.
Right, exactly. Think generationally. Think, do you want your kids to live in your own state? Do you want them to be close to home, or do you want them to have to move to the place where they can afford to go?
Do you want them to rent their entire lives? Do you want them to start a family so you can have grandkids?
Right.
All those questions are all those. I mean, for Gen X, that's really that. Do you want to have grandkids someday sort of question.
Yeah.
But for the boomers, it's like, hey, do you have a kid or a grandkid that's failed to start? Well, this is one of the things that will actually allow them to get out and get on their own. So like I'm not saying the challenges aren't substantial. They are substantial. But we have such great foundations for this bill and these kind of concepts. I really think it could have legs.
That's awesome. I hope that it goes really well. Yeah.
Well, let us know how you feel about these three bills. Do you think that they're going to get passed? Are they viable? Is it good for campaign ploys? Let us know.
100%. Leave a comment below and stay salty.
Stay
Get
salty.
yourself an
Stay
Element.
salty.
These things are awesome.
They are super good. Thank you to our friends at Element for hooking us up with a ton of delicious beverages. If you haven't tried them, fantastic hydration, really great, no sugar, bunch of just electrolytes, good stuff. So
Yeah.
thank you guys for that. On behalf of David Rand, Kyle Mack, and Bennett, I'm Joe Sheehan. This is Human Reaction, and we will see you next time.
Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to Human Reaction. Please be sure to like, follow, subscribe, and give us a review on your podcast platform of choice. And if you want to become a member and support the show financially, check out humanreactionpod.com.